Welcome to You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker, a podcast to encourage and equip moms along their parenting journey. Join Sarah each week as she interviews dads and moms like you and discusses the joys, challenges, and rewards of raising kids.
Hello, and thank you for joining me on You've Got This. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and today I'm talking to Sherry Kyle. Sherry is an award-winning author of books. She writes a lot for tween girls, including her new release, True Heart Girls Devotional, God's Promises for Me. She also writes novels for women, and you can find out more about her at sherrykyle.com. Sherry, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about moms and how we can stay more connected, how we can help make those connections, keep those connections, and how we can really lean on God's promises when we're feeling lonely or difficult. But first, let's start with one thing that I'm sure you heard a lot, and I know I did when my kids were little, and I stayed home with them, how a lot of moms can feel really disconnected, especially if they've been in the workforce and they're staying home for the first time with their new baby, and they've decided to maybe stay home full time, and they find themselves, I think, struggling to make that connection. And I really don't remember my own mom talking about feeling disconnected when we were little. Why do you think there's so much more isolation maybe these days?
Partly, I think, because of social media. I mean, social media is great for a quick connection, but it's not real human contact. And so I think it's easy to just feel like we're connected, but we're really not. So the best, thing to do is to have that human interaction, that human connection. So I remember being a newer mom many years ago. My kids are now between the ages of 19 and 25. So, joining a mommy group or a Bible study or something. And I know it's hard to put your baby in the nursery or, sometimes I know that I've heard young moms say, but my child gets sick, there's a lot of germs. But, it's okay. It's good to, go, not of course if your baby is sick, but to go and talk to women, meet moms at the park or at church or, get out of the house. Sometimes I feel like even an errand, just actually driving and going somewhere and even, going grocery shopping can make you feel like, oh, there's humans around me, adults especially.
Yeah, and those are great reminders. And there are so many opportunities. No matter where you live, there's generally, a MOPS group, which is like Mothers of Preschool Children.
Right.
There is, I know with Meetup and other online forums, you can really kind of find your tribe, as they call it today.
Exactly.
People that you can connect with. But sometimes it's hard to make that effort. And sometimes even when you're in a group, I think it can seem. I think it can maybe be hard to get beyond the superficial.
Yes.
And really kind of share our feelings with other moms. I remember, wondering why it was harder to make deeper friendships when my kids were little. It's either the mom was totally focused on her child, which is, I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but I mean like hyper-focused on the child. We could hardly have a conversation. Or I felt like if I said something about really how I was feeling, breastfeeding was hard.
Yes.
Just those kind of things like that. It seemed to be, I think it's even harder today for moms to really share their feelings. I think there's concern that they could be getting judged. If I breastfeed, if I bottle feed, how can we encourage moms to kind of get beyond that? Because part of the loneliness, they may be with a group of moms, but if they can't share what's really on their heart, they can feel lonely in that crowd.
Yes, it's the whole idea of being the perfect mom, trying to be the perfect mom, and the truth is no one is. Everybody also needs to do it different ways. I mean, I remember sharing with moms, and one mom, like you said, breastfed, the other mom bottle fed, and we can, like you said, judge the other moms. And truthfully, we all find that we need to do it our own way, and the best way that fits our family, and that it's okay, and that nobody is perfect. And the other thing I thought about was moms need to get out on their own without their babies. And I would meet a girlfriend, somebody that I loved and trusted, and I knew, they loved and trusted me, and we went out to coffee at night, let the dads watch the baby, and just be, yourself. Remember what it's like to be just you. And, my husband would keep the T-shirt my child had on and just put the pajama over. And the next morning I'd be like, what in the world? But you know what? It's okay. The baby survived. It was okay that it wasn't all the way I would have, laid things out. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Sherry, to remember that part of our isolation, we can create it ourselves as moms by thinking we have to do it our way, and our way is the most important way. And
right.
I remember when my oldest, who is almost 16, was born, I was in grad school. I was finishing up a graduate degree, and I was actually taking a class. I had talked to the professor, and she was like, look, I'm going to be here like 3 weeks, and then I'm having a baby. And she was
wow.
really great with that. But knowing that, I left her with my husband, and it was like the best thing I ever did, because it gave him confidence, it gave me confidence, and it made me realize how much I needed to be out of the house, even though I didn't feel like my brain was really that 100% engaged in learning, especially those first weeks when I went back to, going to school. Just reminded me of that, and how those interactions were just so important to me. I often tell moms that they need to have their own hobbies. They need to have their own their own space, even while raising their kids. And sometimes it's almost as if a light goes off in their head. And they're like, oh, I almost like they needed permission to do this. So how can we, especially now that my kids are older, and yours are grown, mine are still in high school and upper elementary school, but they're definitely older. They don't need me physically to take care of their physical needs as much. What do you think some ways of moms, of older children who can help those new moms, kind of forge, realize how much they need to forge their own friendships and encourage them in that way? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you brought up MOPS, and that's one thing that I was going to talk to you about. Is I have been a mentor for MOPS groups, and if you're at the stage of life that you and I are at, we can do that. Girls, young women that are having young, babies, they want to hear from us. They want to hear what we've been through, what worked, what didn't work, and what helped us. So anytime, you can get together with younger moms, whether it be through your church, through a MOPS group, or just even if you're at the park and you see a mom, a young mom, just ask her how she's doing. My kids tease me all the time because they say I talk to anyone, no matter where I'm at. But I think sometimes, God prompts us to talk to people.
Yes, I agree.
And they want to hear what life was like for us and how we made it through. And, sometimes I think we only hear the negative, and I don't want to share that to young moms. You know how they say, oh, just wait till your child is fill in the blank. And, that's not what they need to hear. That's really not. Tell them that it's going to be okay and that they will get, through the lonely times. And one of the biggest things, I think, to help someone through a lonely time is, and what I still find today, is connecting with God and making sure that our relationship with Him is first, because we can't have any human interaction take that place. And usually the times I'm the most loneliest, even now, because writing is a very solitary job,
yes, indeed.
I need to make sure my relationship with God is where it should be, because I can't expect, my husband, who is a teacher and has filled up all of his words practically by the time he gets home, I can't expect him to take that place,
Yes. And that's a great point, Sherry. And one of the things that I often encourage young moms to do when it seems like adding one more thing to their day is just going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, I just encourage them to remember that there are moments when they can pray. They're in the shower washing their hair. That's often where I did my praying when my kids were little.
Me too.
The
shower is awesome.
Yeah, I know. The shower is like the only place like I'm by myself. The kid may be in the bouncy seat in the doorway screaming her head off, and I've had difficult times like that, but I'm in the shower getting that. So it's just like recognizing those little and giving yourself permission to connect with God with those little moments. Before kids, maybe we spent 15, 20 minutes, half an hour on our personal devotions and praying. But when especially when you're first home with that baby, and maybe it's your second baby and you have a toddler, you really can't sit down for 20 minutes or you'll fall asleep if it's at night.
Right.
Or, for some kids. So just kind of, I think, giving yourself permission to think, to pray while you're washing the dishes or washing your hair, to, sing that Bible song with your kids as you're helping to teach them to know. Those can be your moments of connection with God.
And, I found that reading even the toddler Bible to my child, you learn no matter if it's a toddler Bible or if it's your regular Ryrie Bible, you can learn and spend time with God throughout your day. You can just talk to Him anytime. And what has helped me, too, is by just leaving a Bible open, like on a counter, so that just as you pass by, maybe you read a verse here or there. It doesn't have to be a set designated time where you sit down and, get out your journal and things like that. I mean, of course, that's awesome. Journaling really I love journaling, and I've done it for a long time, on and off, not consistently, but it really helps, and it's great to look back, because sometimes you think, oh, my life was such a rush. It was so busy, I couldn't even, I can't even hardly remember it. So a journal is a great way to be able to look back and just see, oh, wow, I was really praying about this, and look how God answered that prayer.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because we often just get so focused on the here and the now in the day that we do need those reminders of how God has cared for us and how He's cared for our family. And so a journal, or even just talking to, having your spouse remind you of the things that you prayed about in the morning. There were many days that, he would come home from work and he's like, how was your day? And I was like, you're home? Because it just was such a blur. And
you're home, here's the baby.
I know, yeah, exactly. I often handed off the screaming child to him for my sanity. And but it also helped to remember, oh, right, we did pray about this. We did. So, talking to your spouse about your victories and your concerns can be helpful. And as you said, having that other connection with other women through Bible studies or MOPS groups or playgrounds or anything like that, just trying to keep those connections and being real. Exactly. With other moms. I find when I talk to, especially MOPS groups, and I just try to share honestly, some of how it was like when my kids were little and some of the mistakes that I made, because it kind of, and you almost feel the room go, oh, yeah, I'm not the only one who dropped their baby. Okay, my children are fine, but we all have those moments where we do something and we think we need to have the world's worst mom emblazoned on us. And I think that can also contribute to our feeling kind of lonely and disconnected when, like you said in the beginning, we think, oh, we have to be perfect. No, we're not perfect, and we don't have to be perfect. And let's share those imperfections, because we never know when our words are going to encourage another mom who's maybe struggling with her own image of herself and thinking, I can't measure up. I mean, I think that's just one of the worst things a mom could think, because all moms are like awesome and they're doing their calling.
Isn't that what women do? We're so, we just look at our flaws or our imperfections, and we feel like they're so blatantly obvious sometimes to other people. And sometimes, you know, most of the time they're not. People don't know what you're thinking, or they don't think like that. Or, you know, even like the mom, I'm just thinking of the mom who had trouble losing the weight after a baby, and you know, things like that, or more something more on the inside. You know, maybe she's struggling with intimacy in her marriage because, you know, she just had a baby and she can't talk about that with other moms. And sometimes you just need to pick either an older woman that can, you know, you can feel confident and share things with. I just think either, you know, talking with an older mom, or even, you know, a close friend. Keep those close friendships tight, because I know that sometimes we're at different stages with our close friends, and sometimes that puts a little distance between friends, but sometimes they need to hear from you too, you know, even if you're having babies and they're not yet, or, you know, your kids are in elementary school and theirs isn't yet, you know, things like that. But it's just finding moms that are at the same stage, but also keeping those connections of your good friends.
No, I think that's excellent advice, and I think that's a good way for us to wrap up today. So remember, moms, keep those connections strong. Reach out and encourage one another. Let's be more positive than negative, and replace those broken records in our brain that keep telling us that we need to be perfect as moms, because we don't. And the more we can encourage other moms in this journey, the better off we'll all be. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Sherry. I was talking with Sherry Kyle. She's an award-winning author of books, including her new release, True Heart Girls Devotional, God's Promises for Me. You can learn more about Sherry at sherrykyle.com. And you've been listening to You've Got This with Sarah Hammaker. I hope you join me next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast of You've Got This with Sarah Hammaker. Sign up to receive notification of new podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhammaker.com. Until next time, remember, parenting might be hard sometimes, but don't worry, you've got this.